Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Royal Albert Hall and the Algorithm. My name is Lucy Noble. I'm the Director of Events here at the Royal Albert Hall. I am thrilled and honoured to welcome Emma Banks here tonight, who's going to chat to us for the next hour or so. I'm sure you all know what she does. She's one of the world's most famous agents. When you look... She is. You are.
Yeah. In a job that isn't famous, that's pretty good, yeah.
Well, okay. And if you look at her roster of artists, it is amazing and vast. I would be here for quite a while if I named them all, but to name a few, Katy Perry, Chili Peppers, Hosier, Kraftwerk, Florence the Machine, Beyonce, Arcade Fire, Slipknot. It does go on and on. Very, very impressive. Emma, as I'm sure you know, runs the CAA, Creative Artist Agency, London office with Mike Greek, and she set that up, and you're coming up for your 10-year anniversary this October. Started with around five people, now up to about 100 people. And you oversee the entire business, but fundamentally, and where you started and what you are an agent, and a very good one, an award-winning agent, in fact, many awards, one of the best. So it's an amazing opportunity tonight for us to hear Emma speak. You don't very often get to sit with someone like her and hear all the stories, and we hope that you will find it interesting and fascinating. At the end, we are going to have a Q&A session, so do think of those questions as we're chatting away. It's very relaxed. We're going to be having a chat, and then you'll get the opportunity to ask questions at the end. So I think where I'd be keen to start off is start at the beginning of your career. There's a lot of young people in the audience, and I'd be keen, I'm sure everyone else is, to know how and kind of where your journey began.
Many, many years ago. When I was growing up, I wasn't into music. Anybody that knew me when I was at school, and I think there's one person in here that was actually at school with me, which is terrifying, would never think I would end up in the music business. I was into ponies and drama and debating and generally showing off, probably. And I was a bit swotty. I never got into trouble. I never smoked a cigarette. I never got paralytically drunk. God, I really missed out. So that was my thing. I was all about horses when I was growing up. I listened to top 40 radio, but that was it. I didn't go to a gig. I probably, before I went to uni, probably went to 3 gigs in my life. So I'm not doing a job that I think anybody would have expected I would do, but there were probably signs of my bossy organising side that came out early. So when I was about 13, I decided that there was no gymkhana, there was no horse show in the village that I lived in, so I organised one. And it's not that different to organising a gig, in actual fact. I mean, the people that you're dealing with might kick you or bite you, and it's not so different to organising a gig. But I think it taught me, I borrowed a bit of money from my dad to buy the rosettes, but it taught me some organisational skills, and I really enjoyed that, frankly. It was really good fun. And so I did that, and we went to bigger premises, and it was great. We made money for charity, which was really a fantastic thing to do. I went to Reading University and did a food science degree, obviously, mainly because I wanted really to be an actor, because I was going to be brilliant and really famous. And I'm at the Albert Hall now, so I've done quite well. But I realised I'm quite sensible deep down, and I realised it was a tough gig. So I thought, food, everybody needs to eat. There's not many things that are for sure in this world, but people need to eat. And so I did a degree which was about industrial food production. We canned custard. That was a whole term of canning custard. It was brilliant. So I went to Reading, and the drama was absolutely appalling there. It was truly atrocious. They did The Importance of Being Earnest 3 times a term, and that was about it. And I'd been very lucky. I'd had a great drama teacher when I was at school. So I got involved in the RAGS organisation, the sort of charity fundraising thing at university. And I was at uni at the end of the 80s, and it was at a time where pretty much all the student unions were bankrupt. Mrs. Thatcher was in power. We all hated her. It was compulsory to hate her. I went on a march. Anyone that knows me now would go, "What do you mean you went on a march? You don't go on marches. You would take a cab." But I went on an anti-Thatcher march, for Christ's sake. So that I was doing that. So I did the RAGS thing, and one of the main ways that we made money was by organising gigs. And I'd never really done it. I'd never thought about it. But I got involved, and I really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed the sort of mixture of art and commerce. And if you think in the late 80s, there was no internet. Imagine, no internet. There were no mobile phones either. And so when we were doing stuff, everything was on the phone. You would follow up with a letter. That's when you write on a piece of paper and put it in a box. It's weird concept now. We did that. And then you would sit, and if you'd done a deal, you would wait for the agent, who generally was an arsehole, to eventually send you a photo, and literally a photo, of the act so that you could make a poster. And that's really what we did. And over the years, I got involved in everything. So, we didn't have a huge team, and I'd be selling tickets at lunchtime, and I'd be, booking the PA and getting the bands. And on a gig day, I'd probably skive off lectures from about 4 o'clock, because I was doing science, so I was always in the lab. I wasn't these dossy people doing a law degree where you do 4 hours and that's it, a week. I actually worked from 9 till 6. It was a nightmare. So I would do that and make the sandwiches for the rider, because I was the girl as well, so I was very good at sandwiches. Get that, do the load in, help with the band, they'd play, and then literally I'd be sweeping the floor at the end. The room we used for the dressing rooms was the creche for the mature students' kids during the day, so it had to be clean. You couldn't leave a bottle of vodka in the corner, because the little 3-year-olds would be paralytic by 10. So I did that, and I loved it. It was a time where you could also actually do, you could be a little bit more artistic. So, we didn't have to constantly get approvals on artwork. We just got on with it. The agent booked the gig with us, and then they just expected to be paid and that it would happen. So we'd make the posters, Letraset, hand-drawn, whatever. It was brilliant fun. And I really enjoyed it. I loved the people that I met. I got a real buzz off it. And while I was at uni, I then managed a band who didn't go on to do anything particularly impressive, although the lead singer's now an actor, and he's been in a few very exciting things. He was always artistic. The rest, it was pretty hopeless, really. But it taught me about, putting out records and just how you could work the system a little bit. And myself and my sort of partner in crime at Reading, a guy called Neil Richards, we set up a promoting company outside the uni. And we promoted, the biggest act we probably promoted at the time was the Stone Roses. And it was a gig where everybody came. It sold out. It was in a venue that doesn't exist anymore in Reading.
So you were promoting them as they were breaking?
Yeah. Absolutely. We did that. At uni, I promoted the Pogues, New Order, Gary Glitter, best. Everyone was promoting Gary Glitter then. He was very, very popular. Things have moved on from that. So I did that, and I just really loved it. And all the time I was obviously getting this very helpful food science degree that I have. And I managed to keep it together. I got a 2-1, which, if I was really cool, I'd have a 2-2. But at least I wasn't that swotty that I got a first. No chance of that.
I think it's quite interesting, though, because often when I speak to people, they have rarely done a course in kind of music business management, and they weren't available at that time. And
True.
And what you did is you really learned on the job, and you gained your experience by mucking in at every level and doing everything that you had to in order to learn how to promote, to put on gigs, and you ended up promoting. I mean, when you said you organised gigs at university, I thought, oh well, that was good. And then you mentioned the Pogues and Stone Roses, and actually you were already beginning to work with big names, even though it was at the start of their careers, but without even realising it, you're studying something else, but you're working in a completely different area, and you're learning your skill as you go along.
Yeah.
And do you think business management courses are worthwhile, or do you think it's best to learn on the job?
I think if you don't do on the job, just makes me smile, that phrase. I think if you have no practical experience of whatever it is we're talking about, it's very hard to do it well. You know, the fact of the matter is I have lost my own money when I really had no money at all to lose as a student promoting shows. You know, we didn't have a backer, we didn't have anything. You know, and when we were doing particularly the external promotion, we spent our own money. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. And I think it's really important, you know, now I'm in a position where, you know, I can be a conduit to people and enable them to lose a lot of money. And that's not a good feeling, and I don't think it's something anyone should ever be proud of. You know, sometimes it happens and you have to get on with it, and, you know, we're all big boys and girls and we should deal with the consequences of our actions. But I think the fact that I have an experience of being on the other side of the job that I do now is really important. So you're right, there were no music industry courses, and I would never have taken one anyway, because when I was leaving home and going to uni, I didn't think in a million years I'd be doing what I do. I wasn't going to be in the music industry. I think music industry courses are they're really great. I mean, nothing wrong with it. It would seem to me there's a heck of a lot of them for the amount of jobs potentially available.
Yes.
But having said that, I did a food science degree and I'm now an agent, so you can go and do a music industry course and probably become a food scientist. I don't know.
Absolutely.
You know, I think going to university or college is much more than the course that you do. You know, when we're employing people, we've got some people that have been to music college and we've got some people that haven't. And potentially they probably all end up at the same place, depending on how good they are.
Yeah.
You know, I think lots of it is about gut instinct and understanding the business and just working really hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know.
Throughout this business, everyone has to work extremely hard.
Yeah.
Just talking about, so you said you hadn't planned to go into the music business.
Mm-hmm.
So can we talk a little bit about how did you kind of then transition into becoming an agent, and what then made you decide to go into the music business, and how did you become an agent?
So when I was, you know, third year at uni and everyone's starting to talk about what they're going to do, what jobs they're going to get, I'd had an amazing summer job in my second year at Marks and Spencer's. They took one student a year for a food scientist, and I got that job. I got paid more working for Marks and Spencer's in my second year at uni for 2 months over the summer holidays than I probably did for the first 5 years of being an agent. Mm. So they were a great company to work for. I travelled first class on the train. I was freaking crazy. So, you know, they put me in nice hotels. It was an awesome company. So, you know, there was an opportunity to maybe go and dedicate my life to sandwiches and salads, which is the department I worked in. But as I was doing the gig stuff, I just loved it. And it fulfilled for me the business side, which I find really fascinating, but also an involvement in the arts, really, and in being... you know, being able to help people achieve their dreams and what they want. So when it came to it, I just thought, right, I'm going to try and get a job in the music industry. Yeah, my parents had never been to a gig ever in their lives. They thought that this was completely ludicrous. My dad was just all over the place, thought it was an awful idea. So I sort of gave myself a year. I thought, if I can get a job in a year, it'll be fine. So I wrote letters. I mean, occasionally there'd be a job advertised in Music Week. And Music Week was, even then, Music Week was expensive to buy.
Yes.
So, the investment of £2 a week to even get it was extensive. And Bedford W.H. Smith didn't actually stock it. So, I wrote lots of letters, and I didn't want to be an agent. I thought agents were awful. My experiences with them had been quite painful most of the time. So I thought I wanted to work at a record company.
Yeah.
I wrote to lots of people in record companies. I got the odd interview. Some people were like, oh, you're overqualified, you've got a degree, you're not going to be happy with what we can get. There were a few people that probably had worked out that I was a girl, and that might be a problem as well. I didn't take it too personally, because it just was probably not going to be the right job for me anyway. But I was getting nowhere. I was working at a landscape gardening company while I was doing this, running their office, doing quotes for hard landscaping and soft landscaping around Tesco's in southeast England. So I was doing that. My mother very kindly went and had a hysterectomy so I could look after her as well. That bought me a bit of time. She probably didn't need a hysterectomy, but she had one anyway. I'll tell anyone that doesn't know what that is about it later. So I then thought, okay, well, I suppose agent, I know a bit more about that because I've promoted gigs. So I wrote to a bunch of agents, and one of the agents I wrote to was a guy called Ian Flukes, who has a company called Wasted Talent at the time, and he pretty much rang me the day he got my CV. I went in to meet him, and we had a good chat, and Ian at the time was the agent for U2, Simple Minds, Simply Red, the Eurythmics, the Clash, the Talking Heads. He had the most incredible roster. He was probably the coolest agent on the planet at that point. And over the course of it took about 3 months for him to finally offer me the job. Because now I know why, because he'd constantly go to the south of France and drink wine or something, and I was not top of the agenda to deal with. I went back and met some of the other people in the company.
Yeah.
And eventually he said, right, come, work for me. And he gave me a job as an agent, as a booker. I'd never done it before, but he's like, start on this day and get on with it.
Why did he give you, you'd written to other people and you'd had these interviews and you'd been unsuccessful. Why were you successful? Did he ever tell you why he chose you and asked you to be an agent straight away?
Well, I think, I don't know. I've never actually really asked him that. He remembers me as a gardener from Reading Council, which was quite, he said that at something the other day. I'm like, I was never a gardener at Reading Council. You've combined everything. But I suppose if you can remember that 25 years after the event, that's not bad going anyway. But I suppose he realised that I was a bossy cow and wasn't going to, take no for an answer from him. Ian was great because he was very right on, really. He was a board member of Greenpeace. He loves women, many women. And I think, in what was probably a relatively sexist industry, he liked me. For whatever reason, he liked me.
Yeah.
He'd got a gap and said, okay, if it goes wrong, we'll get rid of you.
Yeah. So that was it. That's what started your career as an agent.
Yeah.
And then when we were talking before, you said within 2 years you're running the U2 tour, which is quite a fast rise.
It was. What Ian was really good at was delegating. Because there was a lot of lunch to eat at Bibendum, and so I had to deal with things. And it was a most brilliant opportunity for me. The first day that I went to Wasted Talent, there was a guy called Ollie Smith who used the Forum, what's now the Forum in London, used to be called the Town and Country Club. And Ollie had written a book which was just basically a whole load of how to do live things, and it had a list of venues in it. And I remember when I started at Wasted Talent, Paul Wilson, who works with me now at CAA, was at Wasted Talent. He was one of the first people I ever met in the music business. And he came and gave me this book and said, we need you to book a tour for An Emotional Fish. And here are some, ring these people up, get them a tour. I had no idea what I was doing. But I did everything. I got given that. Ian had employed me, so he used me. He had an assistant, but he used me to do all of the dirty work, all of the donkey work on stuff. So he would start a tour and then maybe get a bit bored doing it, and I'd end up finishing it off. So I suppose I just did everything that I could. I would do data entry into the computer. We had a computer system, which it was obviously very early days to have a computer. It was on a dot matrix printer. It was that old. But we had to put every costing for every show, we'd load it in, and then we'd basically just print it out again. It was a complete waste of time when I look at it. And it was an American system, and we were trying to input Italian lira. And there weren't enough decimal places in the computer system. So you'd always be about $1 million off on everything. But anyway, irrelevant.
But you had to be prepared to do everything.
But I did
you did
everything.
it willingly and with enthusiasm.
Because I learned from it. I learned so much from it. There wasn't any email then, so everything came in either by phone or by fax. And I would stand by the fax machine if I wasn't really busy, and I'd read every fax that had come in. So I knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And I think when you just get on with it, and when you think you can do it, a lot of the time you can do it. Don't think you can't do something. Just go and try. And, ultimately, while we could possibly impact on someone's career negatively, we weren't going to kill anybody.
No.
So, I don't think we killed anybody. So yeah, that's what I did. And you're right. I did crack on, and Ian was U2's agent, and he got me really involved in the Zooropa tour, which was the tour that went with the Achtung Baby album. And I was dealing with a lot of that. We had a whole load of meetings with all of the promoters from all over the world, actually, when we were finishing up the routing and doing all of the deals. They all came in, and I didn't know about plywood on grass pitches and all of this stuff. I learned really fast.
Yeah.
But it was the most incredible opportunity. I got put in charge of dealing with the support acts, and Adam Clayton was the person that dealt with support acts at that point. I don't know if he still does. And he would ring me up. It was mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Adam Clayton from U2 knew my name. He rang me up on the telephone.
And
bonkers.
And you went on their private plane?
I did go on their private plane more than once. I mean, weirdly, I realised, I had never been on a private plane before. It's bloody great on a private plane. It really is.
Can you tell us about it?
Well, it's just the best way to travel, because you do not have to deal with all of that rubbish that you have to deal with at an airport. And then at least you could take loads of liquid through. Now you can't do anything, can you? It's a nightmare. So it was really, really special. It was special to be part of that. And when I was at university, I'd queued up to buy tickets to see U2. And suddenly, 3 years later, I went to their show in Naples with them. And they're really, really good people and lovely people. And we had a day off, and they got a coach, literally a tourist coach, and we all got on it and drove to Positano and had lunch together. And then we went out on these boats, literally sort of fishing boats that we'd randomly commandeered from local fishermen or whatever. It probably wasn't as random as I remember it. But, and I was on the boat. Paul Oakenfold was the tour DJ for that whole tour.
Yeah.
And I remember being on the back of the boat with Paul and Bono. And Bono started singing Irish sea shanties to me.
Wow.
And that, most of the time I hadn't actually, you just get on with it. And if you're a famous person as a singer, it's my job to deal with you, it's fine. And I had that moment of going, oh my God, it's Bono. It really was amazing. And so, yeah, I worked bloody hard, but I had some amazing experiences really early on.
Yeah, they would sound absolutely amazing and very exciting. You learned so much. But what was interesting is you were saying how, to me, when we met yesterday, that actually you were very poorly paid. I think people sometimes think that agents earn a lot of money very quickly. And you said that you were very poorly paid for many years, and it takes a long time to actually get somewhere on that front. And something you also said, which I thought was fascinating and very nice to hear, is that it wasn't about chasing the money with Wasted Talent.
Ian was a really great boss and a really great person to learn from for me, because he really, I mean, he's not dead, he's alive. I had lunch with him, it's all good. He's not in the music industry anymore. But what Ian did, it was always really classy, and he always took the right decision for the artist. You know, he wanted to give the best possible advice. And I remember really early on him saying, you know, you're better off having an artist that can sell, you know, 1 million albums a year for 10 years and keep selling tickets and do touring around that, than an act that sells 10 million albums in 1 year and then it's over, because 3 years later you've got nothing really to go on. And he would also go, don't look at the fee to start with, just work out what the best thing is for the act to do.
Yeah.
And if you do the best thing for the artist, the money will come because you will build a proper career. And sometimes that's really hard. You know, for the first 4 years of certainly my whole Wasted Talent time, so Wasted Talent was 4 years, and then it's got sold and became Fair Warning Wasted Talent, so same people plus some more people. But certainly up to the point of Fair Warning, which was about 94, 95, I was on a flat salary with no bonus, no nothing. Made no difference to me whether I earn £1 million for the company or £1 for the company. That probably shows how poorly I negotiated my own deal, that's the case. But I think it was actually really useful, because it meant, you know, I got paid what I got paid, and I could just focus on doing the right job. Yeah. And I think that's really, and I still stand by that now. If you chase the money will always be a little bit further away from you. You know, so long as you've got enough to do what you need to do, then it will come when it's ready.
Yes.
Yeah. Probably.
So just talking about being an agent, I'm sure everyone in the audience does know what an agent is. We do have some people from university courses here tonight. Can you just very briefly tell us what an agent does?
For the food scientists in the room. So as an agent, the primary thing that a music agent does is deal with live touring, live performance, private gigs, corporate gigs, whatever. But every time a band actually performs live, we will negotiate that deal. We may decide where they're going to play, what the ticket price is, who the promoter is, what the venue is, you know, deal with the festivals, all of those things. That's the key thing that we do. And we are trying to build a career for that artist. So there's plotting and planning as to when is the optimum time to play shows. You know, sometimes the hardest thing sometimes is saying no, and that's the most important thing that we do. You know, saying no is very powerful, and we need to be able to do it. So that's one of the things. The industry has moved on and changed quite a lot. So when I started, that really was all we did. We booked tours, gigs, whatever. Now there's other facets to it. So there's endorsement deals and brand deals, and CAA is what we call a full service agency. So we have film and TV and all kinds of other departments. And if you have an artist that is interested in scoring films or being an actor or, you know, having a range of, I don't know, bedding, then we can do those deals as well. But it's about protecting the brand. If an artist is a brand, and more that's really how I think the world looks at things, then it's about protecting that brand. It's about building a career. It's about maximizing opportunities in whatever way that is. And sometimes that's revenue opportunities, but sometimes it's passion projects. Sometimes it's helping them do charitable work that they want to do. All of those things are important. So that's what we do. We're not managers. Most of the time, we work very closely with managers. I think it's really important that we're part of the team that surrounds an artist. So you've got a record company, potentially, you've got a publisher, you've got a manager, sometimes some other bits and pieces attached. And we're dealing with, stuff that we can monetize for the act that isn't recorded music, by and large.
Okay, I think that's a very good way of describing what you do. Can I just ask, is there anyone in the room that does want to actually be an artist? Got a few.
Good luck.
So can I ask you, Emma, how do you choose the acts that you work with?
Oh, it's tough. It's really tough. It's really tough, and it's getting tougher because, as a business, it's still a relatively young business. Rock and roll, pop music, started in the 50s. There's people that were at the beginning of rock and roll that are not quite dead yet, and they don't give up. Everyone keeps going. So it started as quite a big pond with not that much in it, and now it's quite a big pond, and it's absolutely rammed. It's like Brighton Beach on a sunny day. There's not a one-in, one-out policy on the music business. We keep adding people. So I think when we look at who we take on that's brand new, that hasn't established themselves, what we really look for is something that's unique. Yeah. Someone that the world will be a better place if they are performing or recording music. Someone that maybe has a story to tell that hasn't been told. Someone with a unique tone of voice, a way of writing songs, a charisma about them. There's a huge amount of really talented singers. Just being a good singer is not enough to have a career in my side of the music business. There's lots of jobs, of performing jobs in music that don't actually ever come across my desk. We don't deal in cruise ship singers or people that are singing in hotel lounges or people that are in choirs. We don't deal with musical theatre particularly. We might put a big pop star into a musical, but we're not dealing with the chorus. So there's a whole load of jobs like that, but they don't make you famous. And if you're talking about the music industry, which makes you famous, which is really what we do, it's really, really tough. And I think sometimes people are led on that, you've got a lovely voice, you can play the guitar really well, you've got grade 8 piano, whatever it is. It's not enough. It really isn't. And so there has to be something special. We sign people, sometimes before they have a record deal, but it's rare that we sign somebody that nobody else has heard of, because this business is so connected now. If you go, there are people that are looking at SoundCloud every day that will find every new thing. So, it's a hard decision to take. You need good songs. Without good material, you're going to get nowhere. I have conversations with people sometimes. There are certain artists that are obsessed with writing their own songs. They may have a beautiful voice, and then they insist on writing their own songs, and their songs aren't very good. They'd do so much better co-writing with somebody that can really help them write a great song. And if you look through history, when this business started, you had songwriters and you had singers, and they generally weren't the same thing. Now, we've all got it in our heads that if you can't write the song, you can't perform the song. That's probably not true. One of the problems, of course, is that financially, you get far more money if you can write it and perform it yourself. So it really is about finding those acts that just have some magic to them. And it's hard. It's really hard. It's a horrible part of my job, when somebody who's worked really hard and really believes in their music sends it, and you have to go, I'm really sorry, but I just don't think it's good enough.
Yeah, which must be really difficult to
It
tell
is.
people that. Some people that have been working towards that for many, many years.
Yeah. But, I mean, none of us have time. We can't spend time on something that we don't think is going to get there.
Yeah.
And if you're looking to get a gig, promoters ultimately, it costs money to put a gig on, whether or not they pay an artist. You rent a venue, you pay for security. Even the towel in the dressing room has to either be purchased or laundered. If you want a bottle of water, it's £1.50. This is real life and real money. And so I don't want to be trying to sell artists I don't believe in to promoters that I need to survive. My business is dependent on having promoters, and I need them to make money. Yeah. It's not a clever deal if they always lose. They need to make money.
And interestingly, artists are changing in that you've got some that have real longevity, and then you have the others that don't. And the other breed is coming through a lot more, as far as I can see. And so they may be around for a year or 2 years. And obviously you see that. And does it make a difference when you're looking at an artist as to whether you think they will have longevity or whether they're just going to be around for a short period of time?
I think, look, we all, in our ideal world, we all want to sign acts that turn into Coldplay or Bruno Mars or Eminem or the equivalent, acts that, consistently make great music. Doesn't matter whether it's your taste or not. There are a lot of people that like them, that will keep buying tickets, and where you can really build a career. But I think we're in a system now where it's a lot about tracks. People don't go and buy albums the way that they did. We all know that. People listen to tracks. And those artists can have lucrative careers. They may not be as long. Some might. You just don't know. So I think we sign people that we think we can make a difference to. Because if we can't help them, if we can't make a difference, there's very little point them paying us 10% of the money we earn them. We're not doing it as a favour. We do get paid. So, so you hope that anybody has more than one great song. It's hard, though. Your first album, you've had your whole life to write. You may have started writing those songs when you were 13 and it doesn't come out till you're 20. You put that out and suddenly the pressure's on to do a second album. Album, really old-fashioned word. Some of you don't know what it means. It's a collection of songs that you put out all on the same day. I realised, people really don't. I spoke to someone a little while ago, relatively young person. She was probably about 14. She was trying to book Bruno Mars for her birthday party. Didn't work out, unfortunately, bless her. But I said to her, well, he's recording his album at the moment. And she said, what are you talking about? What's an album? And you realise that things have really moved on since I started. So, yeah, I think, we're smart. I've done this a long time. I'm surrounded by smart people in my office.
Yeah.
You have to accept where the business is going, and the business may be going in a route which is things happen much faster, and then they tail off much more quickly as well.
Yeah.
So when I started, nobody would play an arena show on their first album. Nobody would headline a festival on their first album. You would be laughed out of the ILMC or whatever, International Live Music Conference. If you did that, it would be absolute suicide. Now, there are acts that may not go beyond their first album. And as well as trying to give them a career, we're also trying to make them a living and make them money. So you have to figure out when to push the button and when to go take it. Take it.
Yeah.
And when to go, no, really hang on, because I am convinced if you wait, the result in 2 years' time, 3 years' time will be so much bigger. Don't give it away. It's a problem because you have, 40 minutes of material when you've had one album out, and yet to headline a show, you really need an hour 20 to play. So what are you going to fill the time with? there's only so long you can chit-chat and retune your guitar.
Yeah, cool. And that's a big part of what you do. You have to make those decisions.
Yeah.
Where do people perform? In which venues? And it was really interesting, the story you were telling me about Jeff Buckley yesterday, where he decided to go and play the most intimate gigs. And
Yeah.
I think people would be interested to hear a little bit more about that.
So I think it was probably, 91, 92, probably 91. I signed Jeff Buckley. For those people that know what he looks like, I didn't know what he looked like when I signed him, which I'm quite proud of, because if I'd known what he looked like, I wouldn't even listen to the record. I'd just sign him. So I met him. He was staying in London over the Christmas and New Year, and he left a message for me on my answer phone, which I didn't get till I got back to my house after Christmas, because, of course, we didn't have mobile phones. So I met him. I didn't know what he looked like. He said, "Oh, I look like a musician." I was like, "Oh, that's not very easy to understand." Until he walked into the restaurant we were meeting in, and I was like, "Oh, you must be him." And we had this chat, and he said, I don't ever want to play an arena. I don't want to play big rooms. I love feeling, the intimacy of a crowd. If they make a noise, I'll weave that into the song. So I want to play really small rooms. And when you listen, for anyone that hasn't, it's worth a listen. The Live at Chennai EP, which was Jeff's first ever release, is an incredible piece of work. It's him and an electric guitar recorded live at a place called Chennai in New York, which doesn't exist anymore. And I thought, yeah, okay, let's do it. And so I went out and I found the smallest venues I possibly could. I mean, to the point I actually think he thought I was taking the piss. But he played these shows, and that's what he wanted. And obviously Jeff's career was, very sadly cut short. So the biggest venue he ever played was probably the Olympia Theatre in Paris, which was 2,500 capacity. The sort of legend of him is way bigger than he really was at the time. He didn't sell that many albums. You either loved him or you hated him. There were loads of people that thought it was absolute crap what he was doing. But you look back now, he was a genius. But he didn't have... His whole thing was about the art. It was about the music. It wasn't about being famous. It wasn't about being rich. It wasn't about playing in front of loads of people. And then you have other artists who are equally as artistic, who have an equally valid point of view, who want to get their music to as many people as possible. They want to play the biggest venues. They'll openly say in the first meeting you have with them, I want to play Wembley Stadium. I want to do 10 nights at the O2. I want to play Madison Square Garden. And it's really important to listen to people and listen to what they want and figure out how you're going to get them there. Not everybody gets to the O2 or Madison Square Garden. It's hard these days to do that. But I think you need to take on board what people want. Because for some folks, those huge venues are tricky places to play. When you lose your connection with your audience, it can be really hard to put the heart and soul into a show that maybe you need to do your music.
Yeah.
And
you were talking about when you're looking for bands that you want them to demonstrate that they've gone out and they've played the smaller gigs and they've put the work in, and they're not just coming to you and having not done that and proven that they can go out there and do activity themselves. And we were talking about Katy Perry, and she's a global superstar, but when she started off by playing the alternative venues, and you said she played the Water Rats.
Yeah, so she played. Yeah, she played the first gig she did in the UK was the Water Rats, which is a pub in King's Cross, and then she played the Scala, moved on sort of up Shepherd's Bush Empire, Hammersmith Apollo. It was a very organic way of doing things. And everybody has different ways of performing and different ways that they want to go about stuff. Some of the first things that Katy did were shows in America as part of the Warped Tour. And the Warped Tour, if you don't know, is a tour which is really a sort of, rock, punk, emo bands. It's skinny jeans and not a lot of soap, probably. And, Katy would not be an obvious fit for that, but she absolutely, I mean, she nailed it. She killed it. And you can never move from the mainstream to alternative. It's pretty much impossible. So if you want to be, get that, you have to start in the alternative world. And Katie's, she's so smart. She really is a genius. And she knew what she wanted and how to go about it. And she's guided her own career to a certain extent to get to where she is now. She still has a lot of credibility.
Yeah,
she's such a credible artist because she's paid her dues. She really has.
And were you with her right at the start of her career?
Yeah, as Katy Perry, the artist on EMI.
Yes.
The, I kissed a girl.
Yeah.
You're so gay kind of scenario. That's a real song. Yeah, I was there. The first time I ever met Katy I was actually walking out of EMI in New York, and she was walking in with her manager, and I'd just been given a pressing of her first single, and she was walking in, I think, to see it.
Yeah.
It was great. It was great to see her. But she is a testament to the fact that, as well, nothing happens easily. She works so hard. Her schedule is just killer. And occasionally you have people that are not prepared to put the work in. And when you don't, you miss things. You have to put yourself through the mill. You've got to be on the planes, up early, lack of sleep, all this stuff. It's not an easy job being a pop star. Being a rock and roll star is not an easy job. And I look at what Katy does, and there wouldn't be many people that would be prepared to do what she has to do.
And what's interesting is that I think someone like you works very hard as well. I mean, you really, knowing you, I know that you put many, many, many hours in each day, every single day, to do the job that you do. And obviously you're very fantastic at what you do. What do you think makes you a good agent? Why does everyone want to work with you?
No, there's still some people that don't. I mean, they're fools, obviously, but they don't. I don't know. I mean, just on that, I do work hard, but the benefit that I have versus a Katy Perry or a Lady Gaga or a Taylor Swift or a Bruno Mars is no one takes photos of me. No one's chasing me down the street. No one's trying to find out what I ate, who I slept with, anything like that.
No, yeah.
And that, it's a massive difference, I think. So my hard work, if I turn up looking appalling, I can still do my job. It's really hard being in the public eye. I don't think I don't know how nice that is, honestly. And God bless all of my clients that are prepared to put up with it.
Yeah.
Because it's tough. You get a reward for it at the end if you do well, but it's hard. So why do people want to work with me? I suppose I've put the time in for a start. So I've been an agent now 25 years, and I've worked really hard. I haven't stopped. I care. I do really care about the people that I work with, and I think that's really important. I don't know if I could do the job the same way if I didn't care about them. I'm really lucky. I can, they choose me. I also choose them. So if I don't feel a connection, it's really hard for me to do great work for people, honestly.
Yeah.
You need to be passionate about it, and I think I am. There is nothing like the buzz of taking on a new artist and them achieving something. And it can be at whatever level. So, the first gig that they do at the Hoxton Bar and Kitchen or, the Barfly, wherever, when that sells out, that's a flipping win. It's amazing. Up to the first time that they headline a festival or play an arena or something special happens, you've been with them. You're part of the team. It's family. It really is. Yeah. And so I think, having that feeling is important. I've obviously been able to make some decent decisions in conjunction with the artists that I work with. So I've done okay. My strike rate is pretty high. And that's hard, it's perspiration and inspiration and all those things. And I'm surrounded by a brilliant team of people as well.
Yeah.
So, all the companies I've worked with, we've always been a really tight-knit team of people. And now at CAA, there's a bunch of us. We all work in one big open plan room. There's no fancy offices with big doors and assistants sitting outside like in 9 to 5, typing away, scared of everybody. So we all sit together. We all listen to what each other is saying. We all back each other up. We've got amazing support staff because I can't do everything, on my own.
Yeah.
There's so much to do all the time. And that's really important. And I think when you feel that people have got your back, you can do better work as well. I feel that everybody in my company is working with me. They're not working against me. They want me to succeed. I want them to succeed. So if you put yourself in surroundings that are really positive and nurturing, then you can go and do good work for the clients that you have.
And it was a really big thing as well for CAA to ask you and Mike to start the London office 10 years ago. And we were obviously very highly regarded 10 years ago and before that. But that was a really huge step for you as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, at the time, I was managing director at Helter Skelter, and we'd got a great team of people and a great client list. But I suppose, you looked at how the business was going. CAA were trying to steal all my clients off me all the time. So, and the way that they could do it was not because they did better work than me on what I did. It was because they would give them a whole load of bullshit, basically, about, oh, we'll get you in the movies, we'll do this, we'll do that. Mm. And did they, didn't they? Who knows? But people listen and they decide that the grass is greener and they leave you for no fault of your own. And you could see the way the business was going, which was people need more for their money. Brand deals, endorsement deals, corporate deals, being able to do other things apart from just touring was really important. And I'd personally got to the point where, there weren't a lot of people at the company that had acts that were maybe at the level that I had sometimes. And it's great to have your peers, and contemporaries able to help you. And you go to CAA, there's so many people that are way more smart than I am and have got way more experience than I have in various things, that I can find stuff out really easily, as opposed to, me and Mike pulling our hair out, not knowing what to do because we didn't have an experience of something.
Yeah.
So it was flattering to be asked by CAA to work with them and to set an office up. And I think, there were people that were dubious that some American, monster company was going to come and invade our little island. Yeah. But we're now, we're part of the furniture, and, William Morris are here, and obviously the agency group are now UTA, Coda are part of Paradigm. So there's a lot of agencies now that, purport to have the whole full service thing. And I think it works for a lot of artists. And then there's the agencies that are still totally independent and do their thing. They're doing a great job too. Yeah. There's room for everybody. And it's not a cookie cutter thing. As I say, I like working with artists and managers that I like. Not everyone's going to like me. I'm not going to like everyone. So there's got to be choice in the market.
Absolutely, I agree with that. A couple more things before we open up to questions. There are a lot of people in the audience who are starting out in their careers. What advice would you give to them as they embark on
Obviously,
their
get a food science degree. And have a pony. No. I think what you have to do is you need to obviously work really hard. This is not a 9-to-5 job. It's a 24 hours a day, 7 days a week job. And that doesn't mean you can't have time off, and it doesn't mean that you can't kick back a bit, but you can't ignore things. If my clients need me, the first thing I'll do after we've done this is go and check my emails and see what's going on. Do I need to do anything? So I think, particularly when you're on the service side of the music business, You need to be available. And that means you have to give some stuff up sometimes. You need to embrace it wholeheartedly. You need to be prepared to do whatever it takes legally. No dodgy stuff going on here, obviously. But, sometimes if the toilet backstage is blocked, go and unblock it. I mean, it doesn't matter. I don't think anyone judges you for doing what you may believe is a menial task and you shouldn't have to. I think it's really important that you roll your sleeves up and you get on with it. Be nice to people, because honestly, no one thinks you're clever if you're not. I really, truly believe that. I can be a real stroppy cow sometimes, and everyone in my office knows when to avoid me. But I try not to be mean to people, because it's really not worth it. And I personally think you can get more out of someone by going silent than shouting at them. It's way more scary if you stop talking. Yeah, see? So I think that's important. Read everything you can, talk to people, network, and believe in yourself. Some of the tours that I did when I started at Wasted Talent, seriously, I mean, why they didn't buy me a map, I don't know. Because, fuck, it was bad. So, ask questions. People generally will help you. If they're obviously up to their neck in it, maybe they can't that day, but find a time when somebody can just sit down with you. If you don't understand something, ask them. Take criticism, and maybe sometimes accept that you're not cut out to do what it is you want to do. I think you see people who go, you can do anything you want to do if you really care, if you really want to do it. Bullshit. No, you can't. That's absolute rubbish. If I really said to you, I really, really want to be a famous singer, I will not be a famous singer, because I am not a very good singer, apart from in my car, where I'm brilliant. But, I mean, I'm making a joke of it, but sometimes you just have to go, this is not for me. I always say to people, if you are going to be a musician, do it because you can't imagine being anything else, and accept that there may be limitations to that. Don't do it because you think you're going to be rich, famous, get laid all the time or whatever, because you're probably going to be disappointed. It happens for very, very few people. If you love making music, that's brilliant, isn't it? Go and do it in the local pub, do it at the youth club, do it whatever. But don't think you're going to be rich and famous. If you want to be an agent, try it. If you don't get a job at CAA or William Morris or Coda or Primary, find that local band that needs some help and go and help them. Make the phone calls. What I do is not rocket science. It really isn't. And when we're looking at employing people, a lot of the time, we don't employ people necessarily because they've done loads of the job. But if I see that somebody's gone out there and actually done something, that to me is really impressive. That's what I want to see, because frankly, when you come and work with us, you're going to have to go and do something. So self-starting is really important. And that counts in everything. I mean, and believe it. Nobody likes an apologetic agent until you screw up, in which case you need to apologise. But, when I go and sit with an artist, they want a plan from me. They want a point of view. They need to trust me. They need to believe that when they go, yeah, Emma, we want you to be our agent, it's because I can help them. So you need to give off some confidence. And I've got, 25 years behind me, and I was always a bit of a show-off anyway. So maybe it's slightly easier for me sometimes. But you don't have to be like me. I mean, we have all different types of people at CAA, but they all have a courage in their conviction. They all have a plan for their clients and for their prospective clients. Prospective, not perspective. That was wrong. And that's so important. And whether it's being an agent or being a manager or working in a record company, people are putting their hopes and their fears and their trust in you. So you need to earn that. You need to deliver.
Do you think there's a bit of luck involved?
Oh, God, yeah. Absolutely. There's luck on every side. You need to be in the right place at the right time. I was lucky. I got employed by Ian Flukes, who was very happy to give me more responsibility than I probably deserved, frankly.
Yeah.
And I like to think that I paid him back, but I was in the right place at the right time. I think if I hadn't done the work, I wouldn't be where I am. You can't just get given it. But when you get your opportunity, you need to take it. And you just have to hope and pray you get your opportunity. And life's not always fair. So, I've signed some acts that I thought were... Every act I've ever signed, I thought was brilliant. I've never signed anything I didn't think was really good. But they're not all famous. And that says it all, doesn't it? They had record deals, they had good managers, they had good publicists, they had good everything. And it just didn't happen.
Yeah.
Because for whatever reason, it didn't connect. They made an acoustic album in a year where everyone wanted a rock album. They had blonde hair and everyone wanted dark hair. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what happens. Not everything works, however hard you try.
Which is the case throughout life with everything, really.
Yeah.
That sounds really negative, actually.
Thank you, Lucy.
Well, you're being frank. So,
yeah.
Final question before we open it up to the floor. You've alluded a couple of times about the fact that you were female, and
I was, yes,
and that sometimes you felt it worked against you when you were applying for jobs. You are a highly regarded, influential woman in this industry. Do you feel that it's ever held you back, or has it been difficult for you being a woman, or made no difference at all?
I don't think it's held me back because I'm sitting here at the Albert Hall with a microphone on a stand. So ultimately, if this is where I wanted to get to, I've got here. It's all good. I think your journey is your journey, and if you look for problems, you'll find them. I think certainly when I started, apart from Barbara Skydell, who was at premiere with Frank Barcelona in America, I can't think of any other female agents. There were no female agents that I can think of in the UK when I started. So I forged a path for women. But I've never seen... I'm not a woman in the music business. I'm in the music business, and I happen to be a woman. And there's lots of women, and there's lots of men. And I think now... there were moments where it was tough. Very few. There was one time where, probably about 2 years in, a man rang wanting to book some band. Who knows who it was? And when I'd told him no, he wanted to speak to the agent about it. And I'm like, I am the agent. And that blew his mind because he thought I was the secretary. But by and large, I've never looked for a problem. I mean, I have two brothers. I grew up in an agricultural family. I went to football with my brothers and my dad. I got treated the same as everybody else. So there was never a time where I was different because of my sex growing up. So I don't suppose I saw it at any point. It didn't hold me back at university. And I just think you should get on with stuff. I think there's far worse problems in the world now, probably, than the ability of where women can get to. There are certain, I don't want to get into the whole babies thing because I upset people when I start saying what I think about it, really. But I think there's a price to pay. I have no children, and I know I only look 27, but it's probably unlikely I'm going to have any now, and that for me is a regret. But I have had an amazing career. So I don't think you can have everything, and maybe women have to give up a bit more. And I'm sure with shared parental leave, life will be completely different and wonderful for all you young people. And all the boys will breastfeed, and it'll be great. So, I honestly think don't look for discrimination. If it's really there and if it's really blatant, I'm really lucky. That's never happened to me. I can't think of anything worse. If it is there, fight it. Tell the people that you need to tell, because it's illegal, frankly. It's as illegal as taking heroin or killing somebody, in my opinion. It shouldn't happen. I'm very proud. The company I work at, we have lots of women. It's probably not exactly 50-50, but it's getting close. We have a lot of female agents, and they do an amazing job. I think male and female agents are slightly different in the way they go about things, because men and women are different, and let's not kid ourselves that we're all the same. But I think, moving forward, the world has come on leaps and bounds when it comes to male, female, things in the workplace. I look at the music industry now, the bigger issue that I have is diversity that isn't gender-based. And I think that, for us, is potentially something that we now need to tackle a little bit more. So if I was looking for anything, I can see that. And I would encourage, if you want to do something, just try and do it. If it doesn't matter if you're male, female, black, white, whatever. Go for it.
Yeah, which is really good advice. We're going to end this bit with Emma doing her talking, but she's now going to answer questions from you guys. So this is your opportunity.
If we can see you.
We've got a couple of mics, so could I ask that before you ask your question, you wait for a microphone to arrive with you, because then everyone else will be able to hear your question.
If you have a question.
And put your hand up, please, if you have a
This is
question.
the question side.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm Lily, and I was just wondering, with gigging, so I'm at university at the moment, I'm in my first year, and I've done gigs basically ever at university. How do I break London? Because I live here, when I come back home. But I've been trying to get, I don't know, I email, but do you have any advice towards that?
I think, if you go, I think on UK Music, there's about 90 venues in London. And some of them are tiny, and I've not actually heard of some of them when I looked at the list. Don't just try emailing. You know what, we get hundreds of emails. I get hundreds of emails a day, and it is impossible to keep on top of them. But actually, two of our colleagues from LA who work in television were in our office today, and they said, wow, it's so quiet in here. There's music, but the phones don't ring very much. And since email got invented by somebody, nobody picks up the phone anymore. And picking up the phone is really important. It's really important as an agent. We talk about it a lot. If I want to find out if Brixton Academy is available on Tuesday, that's an easy email. If I want to do a deal for the Chili Peppers to headline the Reading Festival, I need to talk to somebody. So maybe emailing is great, and obviously you can send your links, but follow up with phone calls for a start. And I think when you're talking to promoters, club bookers, whatever, tell them that you can bring some people along, because that's what they want to hear. People want folks in their venue. They need, tickets to be purchased, beer to be drunk. That's really what has to happen. It's tough.
Sorry, just to continue that one.
Yeah.
So when you say call people, for instance, I called the Troubadour. So I called them, and then sort of someone that works behind the bar answers, and I go, oh, what about a gig? And they say, oh, that's not really me. And then I say, oh yeah, what's that? Who are the people that I'm looking for? So promoters, or I'm looking for...
Yeah, if you've got an in-house, if there's an in-house promoter, you need to ring the venue and say, who's the promoter? Who promotes the shows here? Someone must know. I think you would assume so anyway. And it's hard. Yeah, maybe if you live in London, spend a day and go round to the venues. Go to a gig and ask who's in charge. The guy that's probably doing the sound at gigs like that is probably the in-house sound guy. He'll know who books the gigs. Give him a wax cylinder with your music on. Just showing my age. Don't give him a cassette either, because he won't know how to play it. Give him a piece of paper with your SoundCloud link written on it. But go after that. Say who's promoting the night. It's hard. It isn't easy. I agree. But I think, do that. Stoke Newington and Dalston are littered with gigs, as far as I'm concerned. So, spend an evening, go round, ask. It's hard, but once you get on the circuit, you'll get there. Facebook pages are quite good as well, I think. Message on the venue's Facebook page. I've been known to do that. And people come back to you. So, yeah, try that and good luck.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Hello, Emma.
Hi.
Good evening. I'm Fiona, and I'm currently a student at London College of Music, and I'm also a pop electronic singer-songwriter myself. And I'd just like to ask, do you have any suggestion for international artists who wish to develop his or her music career over here, or to develop a international music career? I'm actually asked this for myself because I've been trying very hard to stay over here, but it's just extremely difficult for foreigners because I'm not from here, I'm not from the EU, so it's really hard for me to stay over here. But just wondering, do you think there's a way to stay a strong connection if I'm not here? Thank you.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, if you don't have a visa, that's tricky, isn't it? You have to marry somebody. That's my advice. I think where you're from is not so important. I get the fact that if you're not legally able to be in the country, you're not going to be able to do gigs. That's a problem. And maybe you have to start where you're from. I don't know. It's not all about gigs. I get the fact you want to do that. You potentially have to build up something online, releases, get press, do the whole social media thing to get to the point that you can then be brought back to do shows with a certificate of sponsorship and get a visa and get stamped in and do that. Because there's plenty of artists who have success that don't live here that do well in the UK. So it's the same sort of thing that Lily was asking about. How do you get going? So I don't know your exact circumstance, obviously. And you said you do electronic music.
Pop electronic, and I'm going to have an EP launch next month. So
Go for it.
On 4th of May.
Everyone go!
4th of May in 93 Feet East, which is in Brickland, which is going to be my EP launch. So if anybody's interested, thank you for the promotion.
You've got 100 people already for your launch. It's awesome.
Cheers. If anybody want to come down.
You've got to buy a ticket because you can't do it for free.
It's free entry, so.
Oh, it's free? Well, then you've all got to buy her a drink because you're lower. Yeah, I mean, it's a hard question to answer, but I think if you've got the EP, then work that. It's the same as when you're looking to go to other countries. Sometimes you do need to maybe focus on one place first to get it going. Yeah, I don't know how you deal with if you can't be in the place you want to be. That's a tricky question.
Cheers.
So where are we?
Sorry.
Hi.
Hello.
You've kind of touched on this in the last two questions. How do you see technology changing, not just the music industry, but the live music industry? So what trends have you seen? Are you seeing anything emerge now? And how do you think technology is changing the way, specifically, how do you think technology is changing how gigs get booked and how the whole industry is operating?
Well, I mean, gigs still get booked in the same way. We phone people and email people and talk to people and we book them. There's not some clever centralized booking system that's going to take over our jobs, I hope. Not in my lifetime, I don't think. Obviously, the way that people consume music has changed and streaming, iTunes, all that stuff is I think skewing. It comes back to the tracks versus album thing. So we're seeing people that can play shorter sets because no one wants to hear the rest of their songs. They just want to hear the tracks they know. I think what's going to happen live-wise, there's some interesting things that are going on. So, VR, virtual reality, is definitely going to grow, for sure. I was having a discussion yesterday with some people who are putting a virtual reality experience together. It's incredibly expensive at the moment. It's not going to happen anytime soon. It takes a month to do a 3-minute virtual reality thing, just to sort of program the whole thing. So that's a huge amount of investment. But I think we will see virtual reality come into play as a live experience, for sure. There's been a little bit of playing around with holograms. Obviously, you saw it with Tupac at Coachella, which was pretty good, frankly. It wasn't brilliant. He wasn't there, for sure. But, for a couple of songs, it worked pretty well. And I think there are some artists that are really interested in that. But it's really difficult, again. But technology moves so fast that I think we'll see some of that. So whether it's, you've got your shows like, your Elvis show with, Elvis on a screen, stuff like that I think will happen. Ultimately, and I'm probably showing my age, I personally still think that what you want to be is in a hot, sweaty club with real people performing and fucking up. And one of the joys, my language is appalling, I do apologise. But one of the joys of being at a gig is that moment where someone starts and 3 bars in goes, I'm really sorry. We just start, my guitar's tuned in the wrong key, or I forgot the words. Or, that's what makes it real. It's a real human experience. You've got the whole, putting gigs into cinemas. So, one experience, the launch event for something that then you can go and watch. That has relevance to it, of course. But in the same way as watching the live DVD of the gig isn't the same as being there, watching it in the cinema isn't the same as being there. So, yeah, there's no doubt loads of other technology. Technology will have an impact on ticketing. Hopefully at some point we can deal with the fact that the very popular gigs, have a lot of secondary ticketing on them. Technology is going to help with that. It's going to help with all kinds of things. But I hope that it doesn't do away with the actual physical live gig with real people.
Yeah. Totally agree on that one. Should we move on to another question?
Hello.
At the back.
Here.
Hello.
I have a question. What was my question? My question was, I'm a musician myself, and I tried out many things in the past years and ended up in many cul-de-sacs trying to find my way back onto the main road. And I have a new release coming up with new music, and now I'm thinking, would you advise me to first get everything together, like have all my music properly recorded, have my music videos done, or would you just put something out and see whether I get a response or not? Like I'm now trying to hold back stuff a little bit longer, and then put it out so that I have one thing after the other. Or would you rather say that it's cool to load something up on the SoundCloud and see whether you get a response, whether it resonates?
I think it's cool to put something up and see what happens. I mean, if you're leaving a gap of 2 years between each track, then that's probably too long. But if you're going with something every 3 or 4 months, then I think that's the way that people basically consume music now anyway. So, I think you keeping everything and then putting it all out there doesn't get you anywhere.
What do you think? Because if you're a self-released artist and you don't have everything in place, that you just get lost in the ocean, or like you drop something and it's a really cool tune, 200 people like it, but then there's the 12-year-old Taylor Swift kid putting another tune out and eating all your publicity away. Do you understand what I mean?
I do. I also think that there are people that put out one track and they get millions of people listening. So, if it's really outstanding, it will get there. And I'm not saying what you're doing isn't really outstanding, because I haven't heard it. But if you look at an artist like Lorde, she put one track out, and it became a phenomenon. Now, not everybody is ever, that's quite remarkable and unusual, but it can happen. Everybody starts with one step. So I think, it's frustrating because you obviously love music and you want to be a musician, and it's not happening for you the way you want it to happen. I don't think it necessarily makes any difference whether you put 4 things on SoundCloud on one day or one thing. I think, you have to hope that the 200 people that listen to you all have a friend, and they tell, and then that's 400, and it goes from there. That's what needs to happen. So just go with your very, very best song.
Okay.
The right-hand side have perked up now.
Oh, good.
They've thought of some
Good.
stuff.
Sorry about that. My name is Steve, and
there you are.
just
Hello.
here. It's been very interesting.
Very
I'm
kind.
I'm an IT project manager, but I'm also that's my day job. I'm a DJ, promoter, and event organizer.
We must book some things with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I have a few questions. Obviously, I started off by doing DJing, then I was resident in a few places, and then I decided to buy a venue. Almost there, but it didn't really work out due to politics, jealousy in the industry, which we know about. And then I had a team of people. I have an events company now, and I've been doing events for the last 4 years. I do them once a month, generally try and get 100, 150 people. My biggest event was a board party, 250. My question is, I can carry on doing events for another 10 years, get 150 people. It's not really doing it anymore for me.
Mm-hmm.
How do we scale up from 250 boat event to 2,500, 5,000 people? And the second thing is, I always feel as an agent or a promoter, you are the person that will be hit the most out of all of them, because the venue manager or the venue owner, he's just interested in 5,000, 10,000 minimum spend on the bar. You need to do the hard work, bring everyone on board, and you need to make sure people spend on the night. If they don't spend, you're going to have to put that money from your
What
pocket.
you're basically telling us, it's a mug's game to be a promoter.
Yes,
and I agree.
exactly. So the question is, do I carry on doing it once a month with this scale, or do you do something different? And the other thing is, which I'm also a bit confused about,
You're starting to confuse me.
if I decide to do a concert and get an international singer from abroad, his manager would tell you, well, you can book him, but he's worth 50,000. So that's an extra cost. How do you deal with this? It's probably too many questions.
That was a lot of questions.
Sorry about that.
That was a hell of a lot of questions. Okay, look, if someone wants 50,000 of whatever the currency is we're talking about here, then you can say yes or you can say no. And if you say no, they might come back and go, okay, we'll take 10. And if not, they won't. When we talk to promoters, there's obviously a bunch of established national promoters in this country that we know, that we trust, that we know the artists will get paid and that they'll be looked after properly, really professionally. And it's quite hard as a promoter to break into that at a level. So, you've seen it, we see it a little bit, and companies like DHP and Rock Feedback, who started really as club promoters, now have big shows and they're doing 5,000, 10,000 capacity venues. There's not that many acts that can sell them. And, agents as a rule and managers are loyal to the people that helped them in the first place. So I suppose what you have to hope on one level is, if you're working with an up-and-coming artist, if you do a good job for them, go back and say, I want to do your next show. And that can be in, you did your 150. I want to do your next show in a 300 capacity venue. And And you won't win all of them, but maybe you get some of them, and that means you can build. It is hard, and you're right. As a promoter, you're taking a huge amount of risk. And if it's your money, and if you're having to go to work to make it, and if it puts your rent or your mortgage or whatever in jeopardy, you maybe need to think very carefully as to why you're doing it. Because it's a very high-risk job, honestly. And a lot of people have gone bankrupt being promoters. So, I think it's probably too big a question to answer in this forum, honestly. And I can't remember your first question because it was so long ago. So, what was your first question? But yeah, does that help a tiny bit?
I think we've got time for one more question.
Really
one more
one
question.
question from this side.
Oh, I think someone's...
I never did have a question from that side. I could donate
Did
this.
we?
I got a very quick question, if I may.
Hello.
Hello, my name's James. Having studied also at a little university called Reading, although having applied to an American company, they said, what's this reading thing you've been doing? I said, no, it's called Reading, it's a university. Having studied there also at the end of the 80s, I always wanted to meet a food scientist, so that's one dream come through. But I have two questions for you. The first question is, what is the best decision you ever took? And the second question, which is slightly loaded, being involved here at the Royal Albert Hall, what do you genuinely tell your artists when they have the opportunity to play the hall?
Okay. The best decision I ever made. That's really hard. The best decision I ever made was accepting the job at Wasted Talent, because that's what's led on to all of this. That was a great decision. Another good decision was actually really going with my gut when we were doing the Chili Peppers in Hyde Park and holding 3 nights when no one thought it would happen. The manager didn't think it would happen, and selling 2 Hyde Parks out in about an hour on a Saturday morning, and then selling a third out when we relaunched. But there's lots of, I like to think I've made loads of good decisions. I'm amazing like that. But no, so that first decision of going after it and taking the job at Wasted Talent and just putting my head down. And what was the other question? What do I say? What do we say to people when we talk about playing the Albert Hall? We go, okay, what we say to people when we play here, you won't earn as much money as if you played another venue that's the same capacity. You will earn less playing the Albert Hall, but it's way more prestigious. It's a beautiful place to play. It's, sometimes because the availability here is so freaking rare, it's probably a once-in-a-lifetime event. It's special. It's a really, really special venue. It doesn't work for every artist, I don't think. And I think, sometimes I've seen rock bands and the sound can be a bit all over the place. But for the right artist, it's absolutely magical. It really is. I mean, personally, I think the chairs in the boxes are too small. It could be because my bum's too big. But yeah, apart from that, it's a really magical place, and it's world renowned, and there's not many venues that are. So we're lucky in London. We've actually got a couple, and we have UK festivals that are world renowned. So when you say the Royal Albert Hall, it has kudos and it has meaning. And I expect really good rental deals now for bigging you up like that.
Oh, sorry, there is one more.
Sorry, this is probably the worst question now because we shouldn't really end on this one, but...
Don't talk to me about my dead pony.
Well, it was basically just, say, you decided one day you didn't want to be an agent anymore. What would you do? What would you want to do? What would be your other dream?
So what do I think every morning? Is that what you're saying? No, I love it. I do, it's like all jobs, isn't it? Sometimes you do just go, oh, God, really? It's 127 emails and I didn't stop until 1 o'clock and now it's 7. If I wasn't being an agent, I probably would completely leave the music business. I can't go to gigs if I'm not backstage. If I don't have a laminate, I'm just like, oh, I don't like it. because I'm so used to being part of it. So I would probably, I can imagine myself moving to the country, having lots of animals, not cats, I'm not that sad yet, and probably do something with children, education, bereavement, stuff like that. That's what I think I'd probably do, but it's not going to happen because I've got too much to do still here. It's too much fun. It's too great. It's, you know what? The adrenaline buzz. I'm going to make this positive. When you sign that act, when you go after something and you sign them, you're like, yes, we got them. We signed them. You know, fuck everyone else. And then when they play their first show and everyone's there and buzzing, it gives you that. And I have, you know, it's adrenaline highs and lows, and you're tired a lot of the time. But it's just an amazing life, you know, that I can be part of helping people with their dreams. And I can't do it for everybody, but those that I can, it's a brilliant job. It really is. I didn't know when I was at school, I didn't know this job existed. It's a pretty cool job. So, yeah, I haven't really dwelt too much on what I'm going to do outside of it because I'll probably just die.
I was just about to say it's a really good note to end on, and then you said that.
I just wanted to keep it real.
But I think we have come to the end. And I have to say...
Oh, the bus leaves in 9 minutes.
I have to say, I personally, and I hope that you all found that absolutely fascinating. It was fantastic to listen to you talk, and you talk so well. Thank you so, so much for spending the time to do this with us this evening, because I know how busy you are. We really, really appreciate it. The bar is going to be open, so do kind of hang around for a bit. Emma, if we're lucky, might hang out for a bit.
Buy everyone a drink.
But thank you so much, and if we could all give Emma a round of applause, please.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.